Okay, welcome to my video on tips and total bill. So bear with me today. I'm obviously not feeling great, so please listen carefully. So you're probably familiar with tip if you've ever been out to eat in a restaurant other than a fast food place. The expected thing to do is to leave a tip. And but it's not only in restaurants. Okay, you might leave a tip for a hairdresser, you might leave a tip um, if somebody's carrying your luggage at an airport or at a hotel. Um, you also might do it if you're doing valet parking, which means somebody's parking your vehicle for you. So there's several things that we give tips for, and it's on top of what you pay for the service. Okay, so the tip represents a portion or part of the cost for a meal or service provided. Tip is represented by a percent, and tip is typically a little under, a little over 15%. Um, now, a lot of people that I know tip upwards of 20% of the actual bill. So, I'm going to show you two ways to do this. Number one, the first way I'm going to show you is using a proportion. And then the other way I'm going to show you, you don't need to write it down, but I'm going to show you how you would do it if you were out at a restaurant, because you're not going to sit down at a restaurant and set up a proportion. So why would I show you proportion? Because there's various questions that I'm going to ask you. I'm not always going to ask you for the tip. Um, so I use a proportion to make it easier for you to solve all the different questions that you're expected to handle in seventh grade. So Jake eats dinner at Buffalo Wild Wings and the meal costs $14.50. He wants to leave a 15% tip. How much money will he leave as a tip for the waitress? So if you recall in our last lesson, we learned percent proportion. And so tip is a percent proportion. So what's our percent here? It's correct, 15%. So put 15 over 100. And now we can use the concept of part and whole. So do you think the tip is the part or the whole? If you said part, you are correct. So remember, part goes on top. And the cost of the meal is our whole, so $14.50. Now we're going to solve it just like we have in all the proportions we solved in this unit and the previous unit. We're going to do 100 times x, which is 100x, and 15 times 1450, which is 217 and 5/10. And now we're going to divide both sides by 100. And the answer is 2 and 175 thousandths. However, since we are finding the tip, and tip is money, we need to round to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to underline the hundredths place, and I'm going to look to the right. If it's 5 or above, I'm going to give it a shove. If it's 4 or below, I'm going to let it go. So is that number to the right of the hundredth spot 5 or above? It sure is. So I'm going to give the 7 a shove to an 8. So I get $2.18 for the tip. And since the question said, how much money will he leave as a tip? I'm done. So now over here, you don't have to write this down, but I'm going to show you if you were out to a restaurant, what you would do. So if you were out at a restaurant, all you would do is do $14.50 times 15% is a decimal. So what's the decimal for 15%? Remember this? So hopefully you said 15 hundredths. And all you would do is multiply this in your phone. you probably don't have a calculator, so more than likely in your phone. Okay, and then if I did this, it would give me the same thing I have here, 2 and 175 thousandths, and then I would just have to round in my head. Okay, so that's how you would figure out how much to tip at a restaurant. Okay, but when we solve these in class, we're going to use the proportion because that will help us solve any question that I ask you related to tip. And it will also help you on a question where they ask you to write a proportion to find the tip, or later on we'll learn tax and discount. Okay? So moving on. So Raven and her parents had dinner at their favorite restaurant. The dinner bill was $50. So underline dinner bill was $50. And her parents tipped, underline tipped their server 20% of the bill. How much money did Raven's parents leave as a tip? Okay. So once again, we have a percent. So we're tipping 20% of the bill. So percent is out of 100. And we know we want to find the tip. So it's X. And we know that the dinner bill was $50. Okay. Do like you always do to solve a proportion. Multiply the variable first. So 100x. And 50 times 20 is 1,000. To get rid of multiplication, we divide both sides by 100. The hundreds cancel, and I'm left with a 1 in disguise, and 1,000 divided by 100 is $10. And since the question said, how much money did Raven leave as a tip? This is my final answer, $10. Now, once again, if I wanted to do this, don't write this down, but if I wanted to do this in my phone at a restaurant, I would do 50 times 20% as a decimal, so 2 to the left, so be times 0.2 or 0.20. And then I would, if I did that, I would still get $10. Okay? But remember, for our purposes, we're using the proportion. In the real world, we would multiply by the decimal. Okay. So moving on to the next page. So now we're going to talk about finding the total bill or dinner cost. So the previous two questions, all we did was find the tip. Now we need to find the total cost, including the tip. So what do you think we're going to do here? If you were thinking we need to still do what we did on the previous page, you're correct. So we're still going to set up a proportion and we're still going to find the tip. But since we need the total including the tip, what do you think happens to the bill when we include the tip? It goes up. So we're first going to find the tip, and then we're going to add the tip to the cost of the... Sorry, we're first going to find the tip for the cost of the food, and then we're going to add the tip to the cost of the food to find your total bill. So dinner cost equals cost of the food plus your tip. So read the directions. What is it asking you for? Tip or total? So the questions on the previous page asked for the tip. Now these questions are going to ask for the total. So here we go. Andrew's family eats at Applebee's. The bill is $45.95 and they want to leave a 20% tip. How much will the dinner cost? So there's my key word. How much will the dinner cost? So this is asking for the total. And if it asks for the total, I'm going to add after I find the tip. So percent is always out of 100. The bill is going to be my whole, so $45.95. And I first have to find the tip. So I have to find the part first. So once again, multiply your variable first. So 100 times x is 100x. And $45.95 times 20, of course, is 919. Now I'm dividing both sides by 100. And 919 divided by 100 is $9.19. Now, in the previous two problems we did, this was my answer. The difference here is how much will the dinner cost? So now I have to take $45.95, which was my bill, and I have to add the tip to it. So here's what we write down for our work. $45.95 plus $9.19. And when I add that together, I get $55.14. So this is my final answer. If you just put $9.19, you haven't answered the question. All you told me is the tip. So be careful and always make sure you read the directions carefully. Now, just a quick review. I'm not going to write it this time, but if I was doing this at a restaurant, I would do $45.95 times 0.20 because that's 20% as a decimal, and that would give me $9.19, and then of course I would add the cost of the bill to find my total. Okay. Now, if you were in a restaurant, you might round up instead of doing $9.19. You might tip $10, or some people might just round down to make things easy. Okay. The vice president of sales took a client out to lunch. If the lunch was $44, sorry, and she gave a 20% tip, how much money did she spend on her lunch? So it's asking how much did she spend on her lunch? So they're asking for the total. So write total. And since they're asking for the total, I have to remember to add. Okay, so what's percent out of 100? And the cost of the lunch was 44, so that's our whole here. And we have to find the tip before we can find the total. So 100 times x is 100x. 44 times 20 is 880. I divide both sides by 100. The hundreds, of course, cancel. And my tip is $8.80. However, this is not my final answer because I want to know how much money did she spend on the lunch. So I need to take the cost of the lunch, which was $44, and I need to add it to $8.80. And when I do that, and this is probably one that you can easily do in your head, 44 plus 8 is 52, and add 80 more cents, so it's $52.80. Okay, once again, if I was doing this without a calculator, I would do 44 times 0.20, because this is a decimal. And then I would take that number, which is 880, and add it to 44 to get 5280. Okay, so that concludes our notes on tip and total bill. I hope you have a great day.